Module 13, the digestive system, the large intestine. The last section of the alimentary canal is the large intestine. The large intestine is not nearly as long as the small intestine, reaching about 5 feet in length, but it gets its name because it has a much wider diameter. Like the small intestine, though, it can be divided into 3 sections. The first one is the cecum. It connects to the small intestine via the ileocecal sphincter. And like the pyloric sphincter between the stomach and the small intestine, the ileocecal sphincter carefully controls how much chyme enters the large intestine. The vermiform appendix is also attached to the cecum. The next section of the large intestine is the colon, and it can be further divided into 3 sections. The ascending colon is the first part of the colon that the chyme enters, and it travels upwards, hence the name ascending. Then the chyme moves from the right side of the body to the left side through the transverse colon. It's in this portion of the large intestine that the material in the colon is no longer referred to as chyme, but is instead called feces because the material is now more of a semi-solid instead of liquid. The feces then travel down the descending colon. The primary job of the colon is to remove the liquid from the chyme and to form feces so that waste material can be eliminated from the body through defecation. So, though over a liter of water enters the large intestine daily, about 90% of it is reabsorbed back into the body by osmosis through the large intestinal wall into the bloodstream. This happens because sodium ions are transported through the large intestinal wall via active transport. Thus, the water moves with it, moving toward that area of higher concentration of dissolved materials. Now, there's a bit of digestion and absorption of nutrients that occurs in the large intestine. What happens is there's a nice population of bacteria that live in the large intestine. They feed on the chyme that enters it, and as they digest some of that nutrient material, they alter the chyme, helping it to form feces. Additionally, some of the byproducts of their digestion are beneficial to us, such as vitamin K, biotin, and folic acid. Those vitamins are then absorbed out of the large intestine into the bloodstream. The bacteria also break down bilirubin, which is a chemical made by the liver. It's converted to urobilinogen, which is brown in color. They also break down any amino acids that aren't absorbed by the small intestine. And the chemicals that result from that breakdown are responsible for the odor of the feces. Any carbohydrates that weren't broken down in the small intestine are used by the bacteria too. This process, though, produces what is called flatus, a release of gas. The more polysaccharides that a body isn't able to digest, the more flatus is produced. Beans are notorious for containing lots of polysaccharides that the body is unable to break down on its own, so they result in lots of bacterial flatus. Now, though those bacteria living in the large intestine produce color, odor, and gas, remember, they play an important role in the body's overall health. They behave as friendly bacteria, fighting off pathogenic bacteria and harmful yeasts. This is a symbiotic relationship. They get a nice food supply and a worm-safe place to live, and you receive vitamins for your body and an important line of protection from foreign invaders. It might sound a little unsettling, but you have up to 100 trillion bacteria living in your intestine at one time, which composes about 3 pounds of added weight. In fact, about a third of a person's feces are made up of dead bacteria that were once living in the large intestine. As they reproduce, others die to keep that population at a constant level. We love our good bacteria. Now, those bacteria are only good for us if they remain inside the intestine. For example, if there's an injury and the intestinal wall becomes torn, those bacteria can invade other areas of the body and cause serious infections. And the body needs to carefully control their numbers within the intestine and protect itself from some of the negative materials the bacteria produce. For example, some of them can produce acids as a part of their metabolic processes. So the large intestine is lined with glands called crypts that are composed of goblet cells that create mucus. The mucus covers the intestinal wall so the acid cannot hurt it. Additionally, that mucus helps the feces stay bound together. The crypts also secrete bicarbonate, a weak base that can neutralize the acids. The motor function of the large intestine is made up of weak peristaltic waves. But if you think about it, you need to have more muscular strength to move the chyme through the transverse and descending colons. Thus, there are irregular peristaltic contractions called mass movements, which happen a few times each day as a trigger by food entering the stomach or chyme moving from the stomach to the duodenum. The mass movements help to move the feces down toward the rectum to be removed from the body. The rectum is where feces collect until there's a controlled elimination. They aren't continually eliminated. That would be very unsanitary. So the body has an amazing design where they are eliminated once or twice a day. The rectum behaves as a holding area until the body is ready for that elimination. So as the rectum fills with feces, it swells. This causes a defecation reflex, which thus triggers the internal anal sphincter to relax. The internal anal sphincter is surrounded by an external anal sphincter. That sphincter is comprised of skeletal muscle, and you know that you are able to consciously control skeletal muscle. Thus, the feces are able to be eliminated through the anus by a conscious decision.